A total of 13 U.S. service members have been killed in the war with Iran, and that includes the 6 who died after a military refueling plane crash in Iraq. U.S. officials told CBS News they believe the incident involved 2 refueling planes in a mid-air collision, but that the investigation right now continues. In a Pentagon briefing, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth honored the victims, but also warned that today would be the highest volume of U.S. strikes. Now, despite waves of U.S. and Israeli airstrikes and explosions, huge crowds took to the streets of Iran cities for an annual protest to express solidarity with Palestinians. This, as Israel says it hit more than 200 targets in Iran over the last 24 hours. Joining us now is CBS News chief correspondent Matt Gutman, who is in the Middle East in Amman, Jordan. Matt, what is it like in the conflict zone, and what does that tell us about the current strategy out there?
You know, it's been much quieter over the past several days, Mugo. We have had many fewer incoming missiles. Very few drones get this far, and the sirens have been fewer, and that is a result of a couple of things happening. First, very obvious, we are talking about the combination of the U.S. and Israel hitting about 15,000 targets the past 14 days. That is a lot of ordnance, some of it very directed, and we have to remember at the very onset of the war, within the first 40 seconds, Israel wiped out Iran's top leadership, its Ayatollah, its supreme leader, senior figures in his administration. That was in the first 40 seconds, and they have continued to batter Iran, its military installations since. But Iran is a state that has been preparing for this for many, many years, and it is husbanding its stockpile of missiles, we are told. So they may be able to fire more, but they can't necessarily right now because they are preparing for a long war. And this has been their strategy. The longer the war, the more painful it is for the U.S., for Israel, and for Europe and the rest of the world, because oil prices will go up. The price of fertilizer will go up. About 30% of the world's fertilizer goes through the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of the world's oil travels as well. There's also liquefied natural gas. So their strategy has always been, and they've said it from the start, is to prolong the war, to make the rest of the world hurt by bottling up the Strait of Hormuz, and then hopefully the U.S. or the other actors will climb down the tree. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen right now. The U.S. is determined, it says, to finish the job, to continue acting against Iran, and to open up the straits. And right now, it is not clear what that would look like.
Okay, Matt Gutman in Amman, Jordan, for us. Appreciate your time today. Thank you. Now, there's still some questions about whether Iran's new supreme leader is actually in charge. This week's message attributed to him did not show video or audio of Mojtaba Khamenei, and he has not been seen in public. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth voiced his skepticism at a Pentagon briefing.
We know the new so-called not-so-supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured. He put out a statement yesterday, a weak one, actually, but there was no voice and there was no video. It was a written statement.
And joining us now is Dr. Sumantra Maitra, the founder of CLIO Strategic Consulting. Thank you so much, Dr. Maitra, for your time today. So is it significant that we have not seen or heard from the supreme leader directly? And what does it mean for the Iranian regime?
I think it is significant that we have not seen the Iranian supreme leader. Usually a country which is authoritarian try and rally around their leaders. One can speculate that the Iranian leader was grievously injured in the strike that killed his father. That being said, the Iranian regime is not an autocratic regime. It is not based on one single individual. There are layers of the security. There is IRGC, there are the Basij. Overall, they remain pretty stable and not at imminent risk of collapse. In fact, this morning, most of their top leadership was in the streets, rallying around on the, with their flag in their, revolutionary day. So despite recent intense bombardment, the institutional foundations are designed to endure these kind of crises. Consequently, despite impressive operational and tactical success, we don't really know what victory in this case even means, because we have so far not demonstrated what our end game with the Iranian regime is. So no, I mean, the leadership absence is kind of influential, but also it doesn't really affect the Iranian regime stability.
Yeah, and Iran seems to have successfully paralyzed oil tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. This is what Secretary Pete Hegseth had to say about the strait earlier. Let's listen.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a reason why we chose as one of our primary objectives destroy the Navy.
So was the U.S. prepared for this closure and prepared for how to fight Iran?
The short answer is no. I mean, there is a thing called the Munchausen's trilemma. It's almost like axiomatic or tautological statement. If the Iranians stop shooting, then there won't be any shooting. Well, of course, but why will the Iranians stop shooting is the big question. The war so far has been sort of hard on U.S. stockpiles and strategic interceptors. For example, the current interception and strike ratio is 6-1. So essentially, in simple terms, we are spending 6 missiles to stop one of their drones from hitting in. And if you calculate the number of money that we are spending on that, and if you calculate the number of money they are spending, we are the ones who are bleeding money. So yes, the Iranians, I mean, the bigger question at this point in time would be to ask, why did the Pentagon not have full clarity as to the point that the Iranians are going to stop the Hormuz? Did they have insufficient research? Were there not qualified people to collect such research? Was there any kind of selection bias? These are not the questions that has been answered by the Pentagon so far.
And Dr. Maitra, the Associated Press is reporting that the U.S. military is sending 2,500 Marines and at least one more ship to the region. What does that tell us about the current strategy?
It doesn't really tell us much about the current strategy other than the fact that if we do need to have a ground invasion of Iran or even capture their coastlines or any of the islands nearby, we would need a lot more force. This might lead to some kind of a mission creep, as we say. So basically what happens is if you are an invasion force, you need 3 times the number of force to invade the country. So the bare minimum ratio would be 3-1. That is just the invasion force, right? After that, the terrain of Iran is mountainous. It's a uniformly hostile crowd. We would at least need 1 million troops to even have like a beachhead. And after that, there would be logistics and armor, pacification and counterinsurgency that is going to be without allies, without local proxies. It would be surrounded by mountains. It would be indefinite. There would be a logistics line that would spread all the way to Arabia. It's a nightmare scenario. At this point of time, sending the Marines, we are not really sure what they're trying to do there. There might be an attempt to get something of the nuclear, products that they have. But I think there is no clarity as to the point as to what the White House is even planning to do with that.
Yeah, and at this point, what do you think happens next with the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, the goal would be to open it up, right? But how would that come about?
The only 2 ways to open the Strait of Hormuz would be one, by the U.S. Navy. If the U.S. Navy starts going inside the Strait of Hormuz, forcibly removing all the mines and interceptors that's there, having a beachhead in the Iranian coastline, then that is one way. Other way is to talk, to have some kind of a de-escalation going on, to have some kind of a back-channel conversations with the Iranians. The Europeans, by the way, are doing that. The Europeans are talking with the Iranians so that there are European flagged vessels which could pass through Hormuz. The U.S. Navy can do that, can clear up the Hormuz, but it is going to take a lot more casualties on our side. And I don't think the United States has the appetite to, go toe-to-toe with the Iranians or even try and test their protection. Because as you heard from your analyst before me, they are husbanding their resources. They're hunkering down. The Iranians are not done with it. They want the U.S. to come in so that they can be trapped. So I think that is a risk that the U.S. obviously has to think about.
Okay, Dr. Sumantra Maitra, thank you so much for your insight today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.